All right, let's jump into things. Where are we at? 10:35 on Monday, 14th of April. So I don't normally do the analysis on the Monday morning, so that just because typically there's not so much happening between the weekend analysis and then, of course, sort of what happens a couple of hours into the session on the Monday in Asia. But of course, we had a couple of little headlines and that are sort of worth taking note of over the weekend because, of course, the tariff thing seems to be the sort of main thing that's driving everything at the moment. But we had a little bit of a sort of, I don't know if you want to call it a setback or if you want to call it sort of like a little bit of a reprieve in terms of the intensity of the whole thing. But basically, sort of we had a couple of exclusions of a few of the items that sort of will be included in the tariff. So mainly sort of tech-based sort of stuff, so phones, I think it was chips and computer products. So yeah, I mean computer products, yes, I guess that then, but I think the big thing there is the phones. Anyway, the market seemed to enjoy it. I was looking at the sort of weekend markets over the weekend, and typically these things like take them with a grain of salt kind of thing, but typically you're looking at these markets and the movements are literally like 0.07 of a percent. Like there's no movement whatsoever. But after those headlines came out, Nasdaq was looking to be open up about 3%. I think it actually ended up opening up about 1.5%. Gold was down 1%. I think it ended up opening up down 0.5%. So, the market did sort of take note of this thing and did sort of react a little bit. So I think the sort of the point of this sort of morning is to sort of see, how much of a flow-on impact is that going to have, and are we going to see continuation of this bounce and recovery that we saw? Because we got absolutely this time last week, markets were falling apart. Everyone was crying. Everyone's calling supersized rate cuts. It's sort of panic stations, and then a day or two of sort of that down at the bottom, and then it's just everyone's like, okay, we're over this now, and they flick the switch, and bang, on they went. So, you're seeing strong recoveries of things, a fairly reasonable expected sort of open with it all, given the strength that things are coming up. But really, technicals are going out the window. If you're trying to sort of find any of these sort of things, like, we had a little bit of a sort of, can't see so much on the 4 hour there, but, a little bit of a channel forming sort of on the Aussie, sort of moving up here. It just keeps grinding up and up and up and up. Like, so the recovery on Aussie has been ridiculous. I mean, this is the big sort of drop down here from Friday last week, and it just basically that just started that waterfall effect, and it just went boom down. I think 6% or so it lost in total, and you can see it's pretty much undone that whole move. So the bounce back and recovery and the change of sort of tone of the market has just been crazy, and it goes to show that sort of I mean when things are falling apart. Look, I'll put a post up on that, and I said, look, these things aren't going to last forever. You just got to keep some powder dry. So hopefully you can sort of take advantage of these things when they drop down, which I covered over the weekend. With my particular trades and that I did very well. On Monday, Tuesday last week, I did pretty much equal to like my best week ever. Unfortunately, then sort of I got sort of caught on the wrong side of gold on its recovery. So that's life. Anyway, what we're trying to do here is sort of work out how sustainable this move is, and is that it? Is that the sort of move down there? Because on a higher time frame, this thing is just really just exploded out. You know what I mean? There is a chance that this thing could continue. I do think we probably will. Like, I think those headlines are probably sort of given the market a little bit of a second to pause and think. Hence the sort of open up, but now I mean, it's only early. It's 10:30. We haven't even got the volume for Asia in yet. But it hasn't just exploded out of the gates. So we'll see how this goes. Obviously, if this continues to push up, we're coming back up into basically, like for Aussie at least, undo this big drop down. So that would take you up to about 63.27, 63.08 at the moment. Should this sort of consolidate and roll over here, you could be then starting to look, okay, where's this next leg going to come down here? Because again, these are the structural things. We've come down, we've found support, we've moved up, we're finding resistance at previous support levels. We should expect this leg to come down from here. The question is, does it come down from where we are right now? Does it push up a little bit higher, then come down? There's an outside chance that this thing just continues and just rips up through here. And really, this is just a mega shakeout, and this would be a failed breakdown on a larger time frame. as I say, I covered this over the weekend, but this could be just a complete sort of fake breakdown here, and this thing could charge up and sort of really go up here. So these levels over here, these sort of high 63, 64 cents, we get above there, that could be really just a massive move to move up to the top side. So I covered this over the weekend, but just to sort of see how it has happened previously, where we've had these supports, it's a failed breakdown on a weekly time frame, and the explosion back up afterwards. It's been quite substantial each time. So Aussie is renowned for doing this kind of sort of thing, as we've seen, time and time again. That is a massive engulfing weekly candle. So it puts it in the camp of yes, there's most likely will sort of come back up to the top side. It's just a matter of whether it'll sort of come back down a little bit first and then sort of go through to the top. So I think there could be a little bit of sort of it's not sort of faith back in the US dollar, but it's not complete panic stations. I think sort of the market likes the idea. We've seen sort of equity markets push up, and we've seen sort of US dollar sort of firm up a little bit off its lows, to sort of say that, hey, you know what, we're not about to go to 95 on DXY. Look, it does seem destined to go down there, but again, I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of this sort of consolidation that we've been seeing, which is a fairly large range, sort of 62 to high 63, so 150 point range or so. But I wouldn't be surprised if this fails to just straight continue through here, that we see a little bit of a pullback, maybe around sort of the high 61s or so. I don't see us necessarily revisiting these lows. I mean, look, anything could happen, but realistically, I think sort of more likely, if we get a move back around the sort of 62 level, I think that's probably a pretty safe sort of little bet to try and sort of add to some long positions. Moving along, so obviously a couple of other ones impacted by this is gold. So gold's been pretty much just, let's get back onto a lower sort of time frame, it's pretty much just been disregarding all sort of technicals. It did have that nice little break from the bottom down here. I say nice because technically it was a nice break. I didn't act on this, unfortunately, but what we're seeing here is had that little triangle recovery, bang, it's moved back up over here. It did have this little grind channel, just pretty much straight up. This morning, as I said, a little gap down, bounce off lows where we get down to sort of low 32s, so 32.10 on this chart here, there, excuse me, give or take. It does sort of give it a little bit of a rollover out of this top area here. And you got to remember, gold last week did pretty much 10% in 3 days, so that's a move there, 9.87% in 2.5 sessions or so, 3 sessions, whatever it was. So there's a lot of easy, quick money on the table here. So you can expect when you see these things and then you get some sort of headline that slightly impacts it, that you may see some sort of level of pullback. I mean, it's not to sort of say that it's, failing, it's going to come back down to these levels. I think that's almost a little bit wishful thinking for the time being. But if we were to say, okay, look, here's the bounce from last week, there's the lows and your highs, drag this one up here, make it move up. Let's move this one out of the way. We can just, whoops, you can see that just came up over the 127 retracement of that drop down of early week. So should this sort of pull back here, we can sort of see that, look, if we come back and say you retest those previous highs, 167, 31.67, that's around that sort of 23 level. If you were to get a little bit of a deeper pullback, that's a bit more of a sort of constant, like this is a bit of no man's land, like it's just that one actual sort of all-time high. But as you can see, the market really did sort of hold this, or try to hold this a lot at, oops, not that button, at that sort of 31.40 level. So as a bit of a deeper sort of pullback, 31.40, you can see even just on the way down, that was that sort of top, bang, bang, push back down. So should this sort of start to pull back over here and we see a little bit of a rebalance of it all, this is probably an area that you could expect a little bit of a reaction from the market to sort of give this another bit of a shot. So whoop, just down over here. I think sort of, I mean, it does seem like, okay, when it's in super ultra bullish mode and it's just going from strength to strength to strength and grinding up like that, it's hard to sort of think, okay, is this thing going to pull back, or when is it going to pull back, or whichever, whatever. But the thing is, these things, it's got a lot of profit on the table very quickly. The game hasn't fully changed, but it has changed a little bit in the sense of, it was just all guns blazing, tariffs, 180% here, 120% here, another 84%. Like it was stupid. Like realistically, it was stupid. Past a certain level, it doesn't matter what level you put the tariffs to. Like if you're gonna if you're gonna put a 100% tariff on somebody, and then you kick it to 125 or 145, or even if you kick it up to 500, it doesn't matter. They're not going to sort of do business with you with a 100% tariff, so make it 1,000. Who cares? You know what I mean? So I think any sort of reprieve at the moment is making sort of the market go, okay, we're seeing a little bit of a calm down in this. And this is what the escalation was this drive up through here. We were seeing a flight of capital from the US. The equity markets are getting killed, bond markets were getting killed, US dollar was getting killed. There was nobody wanted any bar of it all, and they're thinking, okay, well, where can I put my money? Put it in gold. Gold made 10% last week, so that was a great place to put it. US dollar is now at multi-year lows. Maybe they have a little bit of a shot there. You know, it's interesting because last week Trump put a post out and he said sort of, "Hey, now's a great time to buy," and then the market flew up, 10, 12% or something a short while after. Over the weekend, there was some commentary from Trump about the US dollar is about to sort of pick up again and strengthen again. So maybe we see something to that. I don't know. Maybe that's just sort of reading too far into it. But certainly, I remember when that did happen, and he sort of said like, "Oh, so now's a great time to buy." I remember thinking, "Oh, yeah, come on, mate, stay in your lane a little bit." I'm a Trump fan, but I thought, look, that's not really your place to be saying these sort of, "Hey, it's a great time to buy." Um, but of course, he was giving everybody a bit of a heads up. Had anybody acted on it? Well, now he's saying that about the US dollar. Are we going to see the same sort of thing with that? I don't know. Probably not. But I didn't think it was going to happen with the markets either. So we'll see how this sort of plays out. But certainly, look, any strength coming back into the US dollar, you'll see some profits come out of gold. This will give it time to sort of cool off a little bit. Look, if it does catch on, I think pretty much underneath sort of, 31.90 to 31.80, we've got a little bit of a shorter support here. Should we sort of push down under this zone here, then, as I said, a touch of those previous highs, 31.60s, but I would say more sustainably 31.40 is probably where you would be seeing the market react a little bit more, which just gives it a little bit of time to cool off, can recharge, and then potentially look to tackle the top. And again, it's the same sort of thing. We look at it, you got to look at it both ways. You're moving up, you find resistance. You move back, you find support at a previous resistance level, then this leg to come. And this is the all important leg because this will be the leg that tells you, are we going to 33, 34, 3,500? Or do we get a lower high and do we see maybe some little bit of a deeper correction? The pullback here has to happen at some point. And the thing is with these pullbacks, if they're super shallow, whoops, wrong button. If they're super shallow, that shows that obviously people aren't taking profit. Buyers are still hungry and just hanging just underneath. I mean, look, it's had a little bit of a drop off today, but you got to take these things in context, how low they are. And so how shallow the pullbacks are. So the buyers are still definitely around there. A little bit of sort of hindsight just in regards to that sort of stuff as well. The same sort of thing. We found them up. We found resistance. Came back. We found support. This is the leg, and this is the one that hindsight would have been great had I sort of acted a little bit better on this one here. But this leg was always bound to come. This was the one. That's the thing. I thought we were going to get to these levels here, and I'm like, surely that'll be enough, and then that'll be a lower high, and then we would have come down like this. Of course, we didn't. We pushed right through, and because we pushed through and went through these highs, the cycle starts again. You pull back, you retest. So we've still got a couple of legs up the phone. We're still in this breakout leg at the moment here. Obviously, sort of markets taking a little bit of profit on it just off that news, and it's pricing in the fact that there's a reprieve on the tariffs, but the situation isn't like resolved by any means, not even close. So I think sort of certainly underneath sort of maybe 31.90, you're looking down to 31.60, 31.40. But I would imagine around these areas here, buyers definitely to sort of step in and for this to sort of start to sort of have that little attempt back up over this way. Direction for that move there. We are out of this little channel. If we sort of put this onto the 1 hour, I might be able to show a little bit better. But again, with these sort of channels, not that this is a super channel. I mean, it's not too bad with it all. We did get this little $30 pullback as well, pushed up over there. But you want to see with these channels, if the market is reacting to this, you want to see it bang drop down. We had a little bit of a drop down, as I say, mainly sort of news related. Bounced up a little bit here. But I would say if you take out that wick, so let's put an alert under this. Breaking opening wick. So these little things to sort of say, okay, yep, the market's cooling, it's going to cool a little bit. But again, you know, 31.94, that was a little bit of support that got us up to that sort of 32.50. And then sort of obviously we are where we are now. So they're the three kind of little levels that I'd be sort of looking for or expecting market to kind of react on the way back down if it does cool off. If this thing just pushes straight up through here, shows buyers are hungry, they want to take it, and they're going to take it a lot higher. Not much of the market's taking profit through there. So we'll just have to see how this one sort of plays out. All right, on to DXY, and this is what we saw. Sort of coming into the end of the week, this little negative divergence sort of coming up here. I changed this channel just for the fact that we saw the buyers were sort of obviously coming down on a steeper gradient. Where were we? Just down here. We had negative divergence, double tap into that, and then obviously moved up through here. So I opened up this morning, a little bit sort of, you know, last couple of hours of last week, chopping around here now. I think should you get back up, as I said, pretty much where that alert is, close the gap, if you get up above 100, 160, you might see some sort of little bit of a bounce. And as I said, that'll probably coincide with a little bit of a cooling in the metals, just based off the idea that people will be repricing this new bit of information that's come out. So it doesn't, like, you're not going to see all the moves completely undo because the situation isn't resolved. You're still pricing it, but it's not at if you think about it, it's not at 100% extreme. Now it's at maybe, you know, 85. So you've got to reprice that little bit of a pullback, that little bit of reprieve, a glimmer of sort of hope that the sort of tariffs may actually be resolved without a complete tit for tat escalation of garbage between these two countries. But, you know, look, it is what it is. It'll resolve itself at some point. There is some sort of, I believe there's some method to the madness with it all. Look, it's like any other sort of negotiation. You know what I mean? And you've got to remember that these are the two top dogs of the world. Neither of them want to be pushed around. Neither of them, they both want to sort of protect image of strength and all this kind of stuff. So, you know, it will be resolved because there's no point blowing up two economies just for, you know, some cheaper Temu products coming in. But the point is, it's got to be something where they both sort of save face and financially probably give a little bit on both sides with it all. Like, you know, America and Trump, they want to sort of bring all the manufacturing back over there. That's great. But you just don't have the capabilities set up currently to be able to do it tomorrow. You can't make iPhones in America. You just don't have the people that want to sit there and put a screw in, and then the next person put a screw in. Like, it just doesn't work like that. You saw that stupid little meme that sort of was going around of the American people. I think the Chinese people put it out, of the Americans trying to make the iPhones or something like this, a little sort of meme parody thing. Yeah, there is truth to that, and that's the thing. It's sort of like they're not going to make the stuff in America, so they will resolve this stuff because there's no comparative advantage for them to do it there. You know, they can work on other things. They can bring industry back over there for sure. But, you know, you can't do it tomorrow. You need to set this stuff up. You need to have, you know, the people need to be trained. They need to have, you know, the factory set up for this stuff. So, yeah, look, I believe it'll be resolved, just not quite yet. So we'll see how this one sort of plays out. So anyway, look, that's a bit of a sort of a further shot of it all. If we have a look straight from technicals, we can say, okay, sellers here, here's our bounce, here's some more sellers. I think once you can take out this sort of little swing high, or at least put a little alert over here, we'll say bounce above swing high. From a technical standpoint, we see this move on here. It does look like it is trying to sort of maybe just find a little bit of support. Certainly, if you go through 99, bang, I could see this thing going down further. But it's been so bashed at the moment. As I said, I imagine a little bit of this, money to sort of maybe be thinking, hey, look, you know what, whether it works or not from here, it's worth a shot because, what's it? Whoops, that's a rounded bottom, something similar to like this. If we step right out with this thing, we look on a weekly, we're going back to April 22 kind of level. So you've wiped out all the lows all through here. I mean, there's a good chance, like we've seen in other times, where it comes down, takes out the lows, reverses, takes out the low, reverses, takes out the low. Well, actually, so that didn't take out the lows there, but took out its most current lows and that. But this is what I was saying the other way. All the times that it's reversed, it's come in a drastic sell down and bounce, drastic sell down and bounce. Like very rarely does it do these kind of sort of rollover things. This was taking out the lows and bounced. So look, I don't think this is necessarily a bottom, but I do think that at least there's a chance for a little bit of a bounce before taking out the lows and then potentially sort of carrying on. This is the thing, as you can see, it's been oversold. It's going back to February, and it just keeps coming down. So, yeah. All right. So as I said, I think sort of a break of the lows down here. That's probably when it's looking for 95s. Doesn't really seem to be a lot stopping it in its way there. But as I said, okay, I still think that there's potential for a little bit of a bounce first before it does sort of crash through. All right, silver. This is what it was saying. It's back up, retesting the underside of this rising support that we've sort of seen through the year. I think I did have it on this one here. This is probably a bit cleaner. This is a rising support. Broke it, retesting it. 61% of this drop down. So let's take this up to the top from here. So yeah, you got a confluence here of the 61%. You've also got the underside of this rising support from start of the year. Took out the lows, and the bounce has been amazing on this one. Another one that I thought we would have got a push back down here based on that whole, here's support, there's resistance, here's support. I do think we are probably going to see a little bit of a cooling through this period. As I said, probably go in line with sort of US dollar having a little bit of a bounce, these kind of things, a little bit of a pushback down here. For this thing to sort of come back down further though, you need to get on the bottom side of 31. I think it was very tough for it to get through this little point here, but obviously into the end of the week, bang, exploded up into that one there. So very solid bounce. I just think that this is going to be a little bit of effort for it to sort of get through here. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit of a cooling, maybe see what happens when it does come down around this sort of 31 level. Move along, we've got copper, and copper, same sort of thing, nice bounce being sold into this morning. And this seems to be a little bit of a thing. We saw sort of silver, gold, metal, they're all sort of being sold into a little bit at the moment. Nothing drastic, but it is certainly, it could just be early bottom wicks where we are. It's just about to tick over to 11. So we're going to get a little bit of volume in soon. So this thing could be changing in the next 10 minutes. But at the moment we're seeing sort of at least early start to the week. People sort of, this must have gapped up and then sell down here a little bit. But there's certainly people are starting to take a little bit of profit on these bounce moves. Move along, we've got China. And this thing sort of, as I said, he had this nice breakout, and then I thought it would have come back. A lot of these things, I underestimated how much these things would come back, because I thought, look, it comes down here, get a bit, thought about it, no, bang, 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 closed very much on the back foot. But as you can see with this market here as well, early trade Monday morning at least, they're buying US dollar against the yuan here. So, I think sort of this headline over the weekend is something that needs to be priced into the market. I think we're going to see, a little bit of a sort of reversal of the moves that we saw, particularly coming into the end of last week. Just little people taking profits. They were some big recovery moves. So a lot of money made last week, a lot of money lost of course, as well. But I think that, once that sort of like is priced in, as I said, look, maybe you're looking at sort of like, a reprieve, maybe back 38% of those moves on the top side. I mean, they were quite drastic moves, so 38% coming back is quite a substantial move. But I think sort of, you need to price in the fact that things have changed a little bit. Hence why I'm doing a video today as well, or analysis today as well, because every time you get this new data out, which is coming out, just sporadically, it would seem that So I'm just checking things as market's ticking over 11 o'clock. The things are changing very quickly. So it's very much suiting an in and out style trading. Unless you've sort of really bought the edges or sold the edges, and you're trying to sort of just hold this thing, you're probably fairly well protected. But, as I said, I sold gold, shorted gold from 31.50s, and I made a great return coming all the way down through this area here. Had people not had people not banked any of that, and they'd be just stopped out with it all. So, it's really does suit the sort of in and out style sort of trading at the moment. I think it's not really something. And look, if you got this move here and you caught it all and you carried it all the way up, amazing. But at the moment, it's just that the landscape is changing so quickly that you need to be ready to react, in my opinion. All right, cool. So I think that's about it. I don't think we had much on the news front. Sort of start of the week here. Let's just go through it quickly. We are 13th, 14th. Yep. So it's not a bit of trade balance coming out at some stage today. I already covered this on the weekend. It's going to be quite a large drop off because these numbers were quite high. If you have a look at the sort of previous months, because a lot of people were sort of loading up sort of prior to the tariffs coming in. So that's why you saw that big bump up of trade balance numbers prior to all those sort of tariffs and that sort of coming into effect. So we'll see how we go sort of through this session, but that's what I'm pretty much looking for, just a little bit of a rebalancing and repricing of this new information that's sort of come out. All right, that's it from me.